Hazel Quinn arrived at Chestnut Grove High just as the morning sun sifted through the tall windows of the trophy hall. The polished marble floors gleamed under her worn shoes, and the rows of trophies caught the light like frozen rainbows. Around her, the halls buzzed with activity. Teachers in muted suits checked notes nervously, students in crisp uniforms rehearsed speeches, and event coordinators flitted about, adjusting flowers and table settings for the awards ceremony that evening. Hazel pulled her mop bucket quietly along the corridor, her plain blue uniform and stained sneakers a sharp contrast to the polished elegance surrounding her. She kept her eyes low, offered a respectful nod to the passing faculty, and moved with practiced discretion, always the invisible presence in this rarefied world. To the students and staff, she was just the janitor, part of the background noise, unworthy of attention beyond a passing glance or a polite but distant greeting. The trophy room was her next stop. Hazel pushed open the door carefully to begin cleaning. Her reflection shimmered faintly on the glass of the most famous trophy, the Excellence in Leadership Solid Gold Award, a symbol of the school's pride and prestige. Just as she wiped a smudge, a sharp voice pierced the calm. "That's it. The trophy is gone." Miss Carlton's voice rang out, her eyes wide with indignation as she stormed into the room accompanied by several teachers and shining-eyed students. The murmurs swelled into gasps. "I saw Hazel near the trophy case earlier," Miss Carlton declared accusingly, her tone slicing through the room with certainty that brooked no argument. Whispers turned to outright judgment. Faces turned to Hazel, eyes cold and accusing, as some voices sneered, recalling past minor mistakes she had made. Hazel stood frozen, her heart pounding as Miss Carlton demanded she leave the premises immediately. Humiliated and bewildered, Hazel lowered her head and stepped out into the fading light, knowing deep down she had done nothing wrong. Hazel closed the door behind her with a gentleness that belied the heaviness in her chest. The crisp autumn air bit at her cheeks as she shuffled down the quiet street toward her small apartment. Streetlights flickered weakly, revealing the empty sidewalks and closed storefronts. At home, the modest apartment was dimly lit by a single lamp that cast long shadows. Hazel sat down at the worn kitchen table, her fingers absently tracing the grain of the wood as a tight knot settled in her stomach. She had always been strong, had to be. But tonight, after the public accusation and the cold dismissal, the weight of humiliation pressed deep. Hazel's chest tightened, sleep felt elusive, and the sustenance she'd normally reject when upset fled entirely. The bite of the uneaten dinner on the table seemed to mock her. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the half-empty glass of water but couldn't bring herself to drink. For days afterward, Hazel fought the gnawing feeling of despair that clouded her thoughts. Each whispered rumor that reached her lips through the grapevine chipped away at her confidence. The school hallway conversations that once ignored her now openly speculated about her character. "Did you hear? Hazel Quinn, the janitor, involved in the stolen trophy scandal." The words clung to her like a shadow she couldn't shake. But beneath that shadow lay memories of a different life, one that time seemed to have compressed into faded photographs and distant echoes. Years ago, Hazel was a brilliant student. She had an ease with books and ideas that made teachers sit up and take notice. At 20, she had been on track to become a teacher herself, earning scholarships and accolades. She had dreams of standing at the front of a classroom, inspiring students to find the same curiosity and hope that fueled her. But life had other plans. Her mother fell ill suddenly, stricken by a long-term disease that demanded every ounce of Hazel's attention and care. The bustling university classrooms gave way to quiet hospital rooms and the hum of medical machines. Hazel dropped out, sacrificing her ambitions to become the caregiver her family so desperately needed. The world of academia receded behind her like a slowly closing door, one she promised herself she would one day reopen. Her younger brother, Michael, depended on her. She took on every odd job available in the neighborhood, cleaning offices, wiping windows, mopping floors, anything to keep their small household afloat. Over time, Hazel moved on from temporary work to steady employment as a janitor at Chestnut Grove High, the very school that now rejected her. She remembered the awkward beginnings, arriving each morning before dawn, holding a mop like it was a sword to fight her own battles. She learned the route through the halls, memorizing each classroom, each locker, every nook and cranny that needed care. She had become part of the school's ecosystem, invisible yet present. Some students nodded politely, a few teachers greeted her warmly, no one ever invited her to belong. Her sacrifices were quiet and uncelebrated. She had missed school plays, parent-teacher meetings for Michael, birthdays and holidays. She had worn the same faded coat each winter, repaired shoes patched more times than she could count, and saved every penny, never allowing herself a luxury she couldn't afford. Tonight that life haunted her. The gulf between who she had been and who she was now, the sharp sting of being misunderstood and misjudged, pressed hard against her ribs. Hazel's thoughts drifted to that morning. How had it gone so wrong? She was simply doing her job, cleaning the trophy room as usual. She remembered hearing hushed laughter just down the hall, but she had kept to herself, focused on her work. She couldn't understand why Ms. Carlton would accuse her so harshly, so publicly. That same morning, she had glimpsed the student Jake Larson near the trophy case. He had been acting nervously, glancing around as if watching for someone. Hazel had brushed it off. After all, he was a student with extracurriculars to manage and no apparent reason to be near the trophies. But now, looking back, Hazel wondered why the timing felt off. Somehow, the accusation didn't sit right. Miss Carlton's certainty, the quickness with which the other staff joined in, it felt like a performance scripted to convince everyone that Hazel was guilty. She sighed. Even as she wrestled with the unfairness, she knew that survival demanded more than sorrow. Hazel's knew the risk of losing this modest job meant losing the fragile balance she had painstakingly built for years. Without income, little Michael's education could suffer. More than anything, she refused to let falsehood define her story. The following days passed in a blur of anxious waiting. Hazel stayed home, avoiding the few neighbors who politely asked after her, unsure how to respond. She sorted through job postings online, her fingers stiff and clumsy. The phone remained silent except for calls from collection agencies, reminders that the past wasn't willing to wait. But even in those moments of quiet despair, Hazel's mind flickered back to that brief encounter with Jake. His uneasy smile, his nervous glance, they planted a seed of doubt. Hazel found solace in small acts, cleaning her apartment meticulously, tending to the few wilting plants by her window, and replaying every detail she could recall from that day at school. Each flash of memory became a thread to follow. She remembered overhearing Jake Larson telling a friend about pulling a prank to shake things up before the big night. Why did that comment escape notice? She replayed the timeline. Did everyone truly see her near the trophies when the award disappeared, or was someone else trying to redirect suspicion? Despite exhaustion, Hazel forced herself to write down these fragmented clues, not knowing yet what they might mean but trusting the resolve slowly rekindling inside her. Her nights were restless, filled with shadows that looked like doubt and determination in equal measure. Hazel knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy. She had no vast resources, no influential allies, only a strong will and a growing conviction that the truth could find its way through the din. Her body ached from years of honest labor, yet her spirit still burned quietly. She was determined not to be erased by false blame or swallowed by the judgment of those who saw only her role, not her worth. Deep in her heart, Hazel Quinn vowed to reclaim her name, even if the world around her refused to listen. The following Monday, Hazel stood outside the heavy oak doors of Chestnut Grove High, hesitating for just a moment before pushing them open. The polished floors gleamed beneath fluorescent lights, but the air felt colder, as if the building itself had turned its back on her. Hazel's heart thrummed wildly, not from fear, but from a growing sense of urgency. She had to clear her name. Her first stop was the administrative office where she had worked quietly alongside the staff for months. The familiar scent of paper and coffee comforted her as she knocked gently and stepped inside. Mr. Thompson, the supervisor she had always trusted, looked up with a guarded expression. "Hazel," he said, eyebrows drawn together. "What brings you here?" She cleared her throat, clutching a small folder containing the notes she had made over the weekend. "Mr. Thompson, I know you said there's nothing you can do, but I need to ask. You have access to security footage, right? Specifically the cameras near the trophy room?" He sighed deeply. "Yes, but those feed recordings are only checked if there's a major incident. We can't just pull footage on a whim." "I understand," Hazel replied softly. "But I think it might help prove what really happened with the trophy. I saw something. I overheard a student making a strange comment about the trophy the morning it went missing. And another thing. I think someone else might have been near the case before the accusation." Mr. Thompson looked unconvinced, rubbing his temple. "Hazel, I wish I could help, but the administration already made their decision. No one's going to question it now." "You heard what Ms. Carlton said." Her lips pressed tightly, but Hazel knew persistence was her only chance. "Please. If you won't help, could I at least speak with the security personnel? Maybe they can review the footage themselves." He hesitated. "All right, I'll introduce you to Michael, the security guard. But don't get your hopes up." They found Michael at his desk near the school entrance. His eyes widened when Hazel explained her situation candidly, her voice steady despite the nerves tightening her throat. "I know you probably don't want to get involved, but I'm telling the truth. I want to clear my name. The video footage, it might show who really took the trophy." Michael studied her carefully for a long moment. Then his expression softened. "I'll help you," he said quietly. "We have access to the trophy room's camera. It doesn't get checked often, but the footage is there. Let's look." They moved to a small, dimly lit room filled with monitors. Michael fumbled through files on his computer, accessing the security system. Hazel's heart leapt as the screen flickered, replaying the early morning hours of the trophy room corridor from the trophy cam. The footage was grainy but clear enough to make out movement. Hazel's eyes narrowed as frames clicked past. Then, sharply distinct, Jake Larson appeared, hunched and wary. He glanced around nervously, then slipped quickly to the trophy case. With swift fingers, he unlatched the case and pulled out the Excellence in Leadership trophy, the very one that had gone missing. Hazel's breath caught in her throat. Jake glanced over his shoulder, looked down the hall, then tucked the trophy beneath his jacket before disappearing out of view. "Look," Michael whispered. "He's the one." Hazel felt a surge of relief flooding her, swiftly tangled with a fierce determination. This was the proof she needed, undeniable evidence that the accusation against her had been misplaced, if not downright false. But something else came to mind. She saw the timestamp on the footage. Jake entered the trophy room slightly after Ms. Carlton's claim that Hazel had been near the case. Hazel made a note of the time, the sequence of actions, and Jake's furtive behavior. The more she watched, the clearer it became that the administration's quick judgment had been built on assumptions, not facts. "You've got what you need now," Michael said, closing the footage. "But how do you want to proceed?" Hazel sighed, looking out at the busy hallway through the window. This was no longer just about her. Letting the truth be buried would allow injustice to flourish. "I want to show this to someone who will listen," she said quietly. But the staff might not believe me or even accept this video as proof. Michael nodded knowingly. That's the hard part. Leaving the security room, Hazel returned to the hallways filled with students hurrying to their next classes. The familiar yet alien environment pressed in on her. She knew Ms. Carlton and the other teachers would resist admitting error. Their collective judgment was a wall, built to protect the school's reputation and their own positions. Still, Hazel was convinced that if the evidence came to the right ears, the truth would come to light. She sought out a few sympathetic individuals she had quietly befriended during her months working at Chestnut Grove. Mildred, the student council president, listened intently as Hazel described the situation, showing her the key frames from the video on her phone. "I don't blame you at all," Mildred whispered. "And I don't want a thief anywhere near our school either." Mildred suggested presenting the footage at the upcoming awards ceremony, a moment when the community would be gathered and eyes wide open. Hazel felt the flicker of hope ignite again. The day arrived and Hazel stood outside the ceremony hall, heart hammering beneath her plain uniform. The room was packed with proud parents, gleaming trophies, and students dressed in their best. On stage, Jake Larson was about to receive an award, smiles spreading across faculty faces who had overlooked his misdeeds. Hazel, clutching her phone with preloaded footage, needed just a chance to speak. When it came, she hesitated for only a moment before stepping forward, voice steady but loud enough for the crowd to hear. "Before we continue, I have something important to show you." The projector flickered as Hazel connected her phone. Images of the grainy trophy room footage filled the large screen. The room fell silent, every eye fixed on Jake's furtive movements. Gasps echoed as the video played again, Jake's glances and the stolen trophy unmistakable. Jake's confident smile faltered. He stumbled over words, claiming innocence, but the crowd grew louder, refusing to let the lie stand. Students whispered, teachers shifted uncomfortably, and Ms. Carlton's face tightened as the murmur swelled into outright clamor. Hazel stood firm, feeling the room tilt. The quiet janitor, once dismissed and blamed, had seized her moment. The real thief was exposed. The room trembled with whispered shock as Hazel's video evidence played on the large screen. Faces that had moments before gleamed with pride and expectation now clouded with disbelief. Jake Larson's illusory confidence crumbled as the unmistakable proof of his theft became undeniable. A tangle of emotions flickered across the audience: disgust, betrayal, even a measure of sympathy for the girl who had been wronged. Ms. Carlton, standing rigid near the podium, watched the gathering storm with a tightening jaw. Her carefully crafted image of order and authority cracked as the crowd's murmurs swelled into a chorus of doubt and outrage. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came that could undo what everyone had just witnessed. Jake's cheeks flushed a deep crimson as he rose abruptly, his protestations swallowed by rising voices. A group of students near the front shouted, "That's him. He took the trophy." Others nodded, some exchanging pointed looks. The once privileged boy now faced not only public disgrace but also the scorn of his peers. Hazel remained rooted near the stage, her heart racing but her face steady. She had expected resistance, but the immediate shift in the crowd's mood was more profound than she dared hope. Students whose glances had once ignored her now turned in respect. A few teachers exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier certainty replaced by an awkward silence. The principal hurried forward, frowning but speaking into a microphone. "We will be addressing this issue thoroughly as soon as the ceremony concludes." His voice was calm but firm, an attempt to regain control of the unraveling event. Meanwhile, a group of teachers gently approached Hazel. Miss Carlyle, a kind-hearted science teacher who had often offered Hazel a warm smile, placed a hand on her shoulder. "Thank you for your courage," she whispered. Hazel nodded, feeling the weight of those words settle deep within her. As the ceremony ended abruptly, parents gathered their children, many discussing the shocking revelation. Hazel watched as Jake, escorted by 2 faculty members, was led away. His protests were low, defeated. The shame in his eyes was unmistakable. Outside the hall, Hazel encountered Mildred, the student council president, who beamed with admiration. "You did the right thing. People are finally starting to see who you really are." Hazel felt a cautious hope blossom. For days she had feared she would remain invisible, her voice drowned in doubt. Now, she had stepped into the light. Over the following weeks, the atmosphere at Chestnut Grove shifted. The administration, under pressure from students and parents alike, launched a discreet but thorough inquiry. Ms. Carlton, once so sure of Hazel's guilt, found herself facing uncomfortable questions about her rush to judgment. The faculty council convened often, evaluating not only the theft but also the treatment Hazel had endured. Hazel was surprised to find support from unexpected quarters. Several teachers privately expressed regret for their earlier dismissal and coldness. They recognized how quickly prejudice had clouded their judgment and began advocating for her reinstatement. School halls that once echoed with whispered rumors about Hazel transformed. Students greeted her with nods or smiles, acknowledging her presence with newfound respect. In classrooms and corridors, conversations about fairness and integrity sparked in her wake. Meanwhile, Hazel remained humble but resolute. She continued her daily duties diligently, refusing to allow bitterness to take root in her heart. She was driven instead by the quiet satisfaction of reclaiming her name and dignity. One afternoon, the principal invited Hazel to his office. The room was brighter than before, warmed by a sunbeam filtering through the blinds. He offered an official apology on behalf of the school and acknowledged the failure to protect her from false accusations. "We deeply regret the hurt you've endured," he said sincerely. "We would like to reinstate you, not just as a janitor, but with an expanded role as facility manager, overseeing campus maintenance and security. Your dedication and integrity have earned our trust." Hazel accepted, tears pricking her eyes. The title was more than a promotion, it was a symbol of recognition, a bridge connecting her past efforts to a more promising future. Further, during an unexpected conversation at a school board meeting, Mrs. Lawrence, a respected parent and member of the board, approached Hazel. She spoke warmly about Hazel's resilience and integrity, offering a scholarship to pursue her long-abandoned dream of becoming a teacher. The offer shook Hazel to her core. After years of sacrifice, doubt, and struggle, the chance to return to the path she had once envisioned seemed both distant and wondrously close. The months that followed were a whirlwind of challenges and triumphs. Hazel juggled her expanded responsibilities on campus with coursework to earn her teaching certificate. Friends made during her ordeal provided encouragement, and even some former skeptics slowly came to appreciate her contributions. Through it all, Hazel's quiet strength shone. She learned to stand not only for herself but as a reminder to others that courage isn't always loud or flashy, it's often found in persistence, kindness, and an unwavering commitment to truth. On a clear spring morning a year after the theft incident, Chestnut Grove held its annual award ceremony once again. Hazel entered the school with a calm confidence that had eluded her before. The faculty greeted her warmly, students smiled in recognition, and for the first time, Hazel moved through the halls feeling truly seen. As she walked past the trophy room, Hazel glanced at the Excellence in Leadership award, now safely displayed behind reinforced glass, a symbol not just of achievement but also of a lesson learned. Outside the grand doors, the sun warmed her face, and Hazel turned toward the bustling campus with a smile curling softly at her lips. She had not only reclaimed her name, she had earned the respect and dignity she deserved. The quiet janitor was no longer invisible. She was a valued member of the community, her head held high, ready for the next chapter of her life. The fallout from the awards ceremony rippled swiftly through Chestnut Grove High. Jake Larson, once a favored student with a reputation for charm and ease, faced a stark reversal of fortune. Within days, the school administration convened a disciplinary committee that recommended his immediate suspension from all school activities pending further review. The news spread like wildfire, tongues wagging in classrooms and hallways as students grappled with the shock of Jake's betrayal. For Hazel, the outcome was both a relief and a validation long overdue. But more was in store. The principal, Mr. Harrington, requested a private meeting. Hazel entered his spacious office with measured steps, her nerves tingling with anticipation. "Hazel," Mr. Harrington began, his voice warm but serious, "I want to apologize once more for the way the school handled the situation. You were wrongly accused, and that was unacceptable." Hazel nodded, appreciation softening her features. "Thank you, sir. That means a lot." He continued, "We would like to reinstate you with a promotion to facility manager. This role will come with more responsibilities but also a significant raise." Hazel took a breath, the offer far exceeding her expectations. "I'm grateful for the opportunity," she said steadily. "I'd like to continue building trust and helping the school." Mr. Harrington smiled. "We also want to support your personal goals. Mrs. Lawrence, a member of our school board and longtime supporter, is impressed by your courage. She's offered to fund a scholarship for you to complete your teaching certification." The news caught Hazel by surprise. A flood of memories, late nights studying, dreams shelved for family obligations, washed over her. She felt a delicate blend of gratitude and renewed hope. "It's an incredible chance," Hazel whispered, the words heavy with unspoken hardship and determination. "I won't let you down." Meanwhile, Jake's suspension became a cautionary tale. The school's emphasis on integrity and accountability became more than slogans. It transformed into conversations and policies that aimed to prevent such incidents from happening again. Publicly, Ms. Carlton offered a formal apology to Hazel during a staff meeting, though the gesture felt tinged with discomfort and a desire to quell unrest. Hazel accepted the apology quietly. The incident had taught her that forgiveness was sometimes its own kind of strength, but she would never forget the sting of injustice. As weeks turned to months, Hazel's life assumed a new rhythm. Her days at Chestnut Grove were busier and more fulfilling than ever. She managed the maintenance team, coordinated security measures, and oversaw repairs across campus. The respect from the school community was palpable, the nods from students and teachers a balm for old wounds. In the evenings, she dove into her coursework, textbooks spread across her kitchen table, illuminated by a small lamp. The scholarship provided a lifeline that made the dream she had buried for so many years rain back slowly into her reality. Her brother Michael watched her with pride, offering small help and encouragement when headaches or fatigue visited. Their bond had grown even stronger, fortified by shared struggles and now blossoming aspirations. Hazel's story became an inspiration. At school events, she was sometimes invited to speak, not as the janitor who was first accused, but as a symbol of resilience, integrity, and quiet courage. One afternoon, Hazel found herself standing in front of a classroom filled with eager, curious students. She was there to teach a lesson on community values, infused with anecdotes from her own experience. Her voice was calm and firm as she spoke. "Sometimes, the truth isn't easy to hear or to find. But standing for what's right, no matter how small or quiet your voice, is what makes a difference." Eyes locked in on hers, the students listened, absorbing a message far greater than any textbook could deliver. Outside the classroom, a janitor's cart waited in the hallway. It was no longer just Hazel's tool of survival, it was a symbol of transition, a bridge between past and future. As the day turned to dusk, Hazel took a moment by the school's front steps, the familiar building before her steeped in memories both painful and uplifting. The sun dipped low, casting a warm glow that flickered across her face. For the first time in a long time, Hazel felt truly at peace. She straightened her back, lifted her chin, and walked forward with a quiet confidence that radiated from every step. The girl who had been silenced and sidelined was no longer invisible. She was a beacon of strength, her story carved into the heart of Chestnut Grove High, a testament to the power of truth and the resilience of the human spirit. And as Hazel Quinn stepped through the doors of the school once more, this time not as a mere janitor but as a leader and future educator, her head held high, the world around her finally saw her clearly.